Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for coming to the last talk. So some of you look really tired, like me perhaps, but I hope you can join me for the next 3 hours. Perhaps some of you noticed I'm working at NETWAYS. My name is Bernd Erk, which sounds a little bit stupid in English. You can reach me by email or follow me on Twitter if you want to do that. I'm in the Icinga project since the beginning, so it's nearly 6 years. So we forked Nagios about in I think it was the 10th of May, 2009. I'm in there since that. I give a little bit introduction what Icinga is. I assume that most of you have an idea what Icinga is, what monitoring is, but just a couple of slides that you get an expression what we think Icinga is. So for us, it's an open source enterprise monitoring tool, focusing on monitoring stuff, alerting stuff, so do something, react, and probably generate data for performance monitoring or reporting. So the history is that we forked the project, I told you, in 2009, and we're still running the old Icinga one, so it's still in maintenance. But since 2014, we are out with Icinga 2, so I think it's stable since June or July 2014. So we started it with 3 years ago. And so our focus is on Icinga 2, and this is also the focus of the talk, focusing on that. So the project is run by all these people spread across the world, and we are open for you. So if somebody of you has a great idea or has knowledge in C++ or Ansible, Puppet, Chef, or documentation, whatever, so please feel free, get in touch with us. We are everywhere, social media, IRC. So if you want to contribute, we would really appreciate that. Another thing that's probably my 2 marketing slides, we have our own plugin exchange. The major reason is because Icinga users were not allowed to take Icinga plugins on Nagios Exchange anymore. They kicked their plugins out there, which was the reason we have our own platform now. So if you have a plugin or a module or something related to Icinga or Shinkin or Nagios, this is pretty okay for us. You can upload it here. And we have also a cool feature that we can sync it with your GitHub repository. So if you have a plugin or something in your GitHub repository, you can log in, and then perhaps you cannot see it, but normally it's there. It lists your repositories you have at GitHub, and then you can sync your project that you don't have to re-upload your plugin or add-on every time you do some stuff with it. So this is a pretty cool feature, and the user base is growing the last month, so it's online since October last year. This is a really good place to find stuff for Icinga. What Icinga, the project in general, is a little bit more than the software itself. So we have at the moment these 2 cores, like Icinga 1 and Icinga 2. We have a couple of web interfaces. We'll tell more about that later. We have reporting. It's not under heavy maintenance at the moment, so we have the Jasper-based reporting. We will try to integrate more and more reports in the web interface in the future. So Jasper will lose a little bit of its importance for the project, but we will keep it on maintenance, and we try to figure out what we do with it in the future. And documentation is important. We have a documentation based on Markdown. It's really good. So especially the Icinga 2 documentation is really, really detailed, so you can see all the columns, whatever we expose with live status and database model, everything. So it really makes sense to check this out. So, but today I will focus on Icinga 2 because this is our new hot shit, and I want to show you that. A short introduction what Icinga is. So one of the approaches we would like to monitor everything, and you can monitor everything. So if it has a network interface, it's easier to monitor it. But if there's no interface available, you can do something with contacts. You can monitor your fridge. If somebody put out the milk at night, you can do that with whatever you want to. An important thing is that we do it in a regular interval. So going to the server every 5 minutes is one of the basic concepts in Icinga, or every second if you want to. That we get the status out, and we also get the performance data out of this check. The other thing which is important, like reacting on that, so we notifying on the channel you like, so email, text message, voice alert, Jabber, or just a like traffic sign on your desk which gets read, whatever you want to. we have the chance to detect dependencies if you have configured it, so we can see if the router is offline, that you're probably not able to reach the network zone behind it. And you can also do something like event handlers, so react on specific downtimes, or you can react on specific situations and, I don't know, restart the web server, call somebody, shut down the data center, whatever you want to. And the third thing is like we forward stuff. So we want to do something with the data. You can forward logs to Graylog or Logstash if you want to, using the Gelf export. You can write data directly to Graphite or InfluxDB, which is really advanced feature compared to what you can do with Nagios. So we can export Nagios data to Graphite, but it's a mess. You have to do everything on your own. And using Icinga, it's just like an enable feature, and that's it. In general, Icinga 2 has no line of code from Icinga 1, so it's totally rewritten from scratch. It's written in C++ and using Boost library. It runs on every Linux, Unix distribution. It also runs on Raspberry Pi if you want to use it. It also runs on Windows, so you can launch it on Windows. Perhaps running as a server on Windows is not the primary target, but you can monitor a Windows server, and you can perhaps use a Windows server as an access bridge to another network zone if you want to. So it really works, and really take care that it works in the future, hunting it through the build server and testing it, and this works really good. We support MySQL and Postgres. So for now, and hopefully for the near future, we don't have any Oracle support. It's not planned. We don't have to. Some people complaining that we don't have Oracle support, but it didn't work so well in the old version, so we decided to not do it again. Depends, it's hard to support Oracle because of their library and code, OCI things you need. So for now, I don't think that we make it. And we have a really extensive template library. It's a little bit hidden because it's somewhere delivered with the packages, and we really would like you to use the packages. Gesundheit. But all these things to configure plugin and HTTP and all the stuff you normally need for monitoring system is still there. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel again. And we get a lot of contribution on these ITIL, so this Icinga template library. It's important that you forget the other I, so not ITIL. And this is really interesting to use. And the current version, just to complete that area, 2.3.4 is out since a couple of days. It's our current version. Our next major version is planned, and I will repeat this later on, I think, for November. Then 2.4 will come out. We have extensive Puppet, Chef, Ansible, and all these things support. So it's really easy to use config management to install it, distribute it. And we have a lovely Vagrant boxes where you can install Icinga with a cluster setup, Graphite, everything with just the Vagrant up, and can decide what you want to do. So if you want to play around, it's really cool. Okay, this talk looks a little bit like a Nagios bashing, but it's not it. So one of the reasons so we forked Nagios is because we loved the concept of Nagios. So in general, we like the basic concept Nagios has because we think Nagios is good in some way. So one big advantage in Nagios is it's really easy. So an ape can write a plugin for Nagios. It's just a code, just some sentence, it's okay, and perhaps performance data if you want to, but it's really easy. It's a really simple software stack. So Nagios is just an install. You don't have to have a database or RabbitMQ or whatever. You don't need a cloud to run it. It's really easy, just a process. You don't have any external dependencies, so it's really easy to just execute some stuff. This active check thing, so you can do agent-based checks with Icinga as well, or with Nagios, but these active checks is a very powerful thing, that pressing a button and really see the status which is going on now. Gathering the performance data, and nevertheless also the huge community, so which is one of the biggest advantages Nagios and Icinga has, that there are thousands of plugins, millions of users using it. So the general idea of Nagios was, it's okay. But then the question is, why Icinga if Nagios is okay? And there are several problems with Nagios. One big thing, Nagios does not scale. So if you have time and you have servers and you are focusing on your monitoring the whole day, you can make it scale. But the basic concept is that Nagios is a single loop. It's just running and running, and if you have a server with a couple of CPUs, it's only using one. And this is going to be hot, and the other CPUs do nothing, go to bed. This is a really big issue. And there are a lot of limitations if you do massive monitoring, talking to the external interfacing, putting data to the external command file, or also in the earlier versions, writing data to the database could lead you to totally log out of your system. So scaling is a really big issue with Nagios. And they did some work in the last years to tell that, but it's still a big thing. Like pushing a lot of data in the service check reaper still does not work very good. So Icinga 2, this was one of the basic architectural concepts. We said we need something multi-threaded because Icinga is a fork engine. It's like we're forking millions of times, executing plugins. The load is really good distributed, so you can do massive checks on a single box, and you can also add box and scale horizontal if you want to. And you can monitor thousands of devices in a second interval. And this is a little bit of a marketing benchmark, I will name it, because benchmarking Icinga is really hard because the real time and the real ability of Icinga is mostly related to your plugins. So if you're executing a 40 megabyte Perl monster every second, then it will be not so good. And this is just an example. So we executed 1 million service checks, 1 million service check in a 60-second interval. Okay, that's my problem that I always like to walk. Yeah. So the important thing is that the first bar is a standard Icinga 1. The second bar is Icinga 1 with Gearman. Gearman is a pretty cool solution if you're still on Icinga 1 to distribute the load using Gearman brokers. It works very well, but using Icinga 2 works better. Another thing is like adding modules. So if you're using Nagios Icinga in the earlier versions, adding live status, adding IDO stuff is really hard. So, for example, if you want to enable a Microsoft PowerPoint encountered a problem, okay. Okay. Okay, my name is Bernd Erk. We start again. No, we don't do that. Sorry. I call Microsoft later. But this is an unlicensed version, so this could be a problem. Okay. I hope that it's not crashing again. Okay, so for example, if you want to add live status to Icinga 1 and Nagios, it's like getting the packages, compiling the stuff. You have Android, you have to do the configure, you have to do the make. So it's doable, no problem, you can do it. Then you have to copy over the libraries, and then you need to define the broker configuration where you have the file. And this is pretty hard. So the old broker concept in Icinga was, you were able to do so, but there were only a couple of modules. For Nagios and Icinga 1, I would say it's about 5 or 6 modules existing, which will really be able, talking to that event broker API. And we totally changed that concept in Icinga 2. Icinga 2 has a feature-based concept. So there's a core, so the heart of Icinga, which always runs. And then we have a lot of features. And you can decide which features you want to have. So you don't have to enable all of them. So the basic, which makes totally sense, is to enable the checker, because if you don't enable the checker, you will not receive any result. Perhaps if you enter passive results, it makes sense. Anyway, and all the other things is really, it's up to you what you want to do. So we're in a cluster, if you're distributed, and you can also run Icinga 2 on a client. So you can use Icinga 2 as a monitoring agent. It consumes about, I don't know, 20 megabytes of memory. Is it right? More or less? Okay, for 30,000 services, we consume about 20 megabytes. If you have 30,000 services on one box, chapeau. Okay, we have a powerful CLI, so invested a lot of time, like all that features we have are really easy to achievable and making them easy. For us, it's a chance like adding features by time, so because we started, I think Graphite was not there in the first version, so we added Graphite. Then we added OpenTSTP support. Then we added Influx. No, not Influx. Influx is Graphite. OpenTSTP in the last version. So for us, it's easy to deliver more and more with Icinga without breaking some configuration stuff. And another thing is you can really do crazy things with it. You can have mashed up clusters and a lot of Icinga nodes and zones and everything. But we wanted to make it easy for the big user base, because the big user base using Nagios Icinga, they have 20 hosts. This is 90% of all the people using Nagios Icinga and all the monitoring tools out there. They have 20 or 30 hosts, not more. They don't have 1,000 cloud things to monitor. And for them, we really want to make like installing a package, apt-get install, whatever, and then have it without configuring a lot of broker stuff. So make it easy for them, but you can make it complex, and we see later how you can do it. And for example, to go back to that, lead back to that live starters installation. So installing live starters on Icinga 2 is this one. If you want to enable live starters, it's an Icinga feature enable live starters. Then you have to restart Icinga 2, and that's it. It's everything you have to do. It's delivered with the code. Also, if you want to use the IDO utils, and I know in the old world, IDO NDO utils was not very popular because it was not good. Now it is. If you want to enable it, it's just in feature enable IDO MySQL or IDO Postgre, and that's it. And how this works, I show you now. Or not? Okay. I just would like to play around a little bit with the console. So with the Icinga 2 command, can you see it? Can you read it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. With the Icinga 2 command, we have tab completion. So if you're executing Icinga 2, you see all the features we have for now. And for example, if you use Icinga feature list, you can see what's going on. So what the features are disabled at the moment, what features are enabled. And it's really easy to enable other features. So for now, checker is enabled, which should go so. But for example, if we want to enable Graphite, so it's say, okay, Graphite is really hot, I want to have it. It's just like in Icinga 2, feature enable Graphite, and that's it. We just have to restart Icinga 2, and then it's done. It's from the concept, it works a little bit like Apache if site-disabled concept. It's just creating a soft link, which is very easy. And if we go to the config, features enabled, you see what's going on with the Graphite conf, for example. You have just to configure the host and the port where Graphite sits, and that's it. You don't have to do more. Another thing you can do with Icinga, you have a chance to, so if you have a complex configuration, so if you inherit objects, if you're using templates and override specific thresholds over time in your configuration, with Nagios it's really hard to determine what is the origin of a specific attribute. So you're overriding, I don't know, this critical, and some places using a template here, using another template there, and then you're asking yourself sometimes, okay, where does this come from? Or I have a critical at 50%, whatever, and I don't know where it is. And Icinga 2 is really easy to do that. So we have something like an object list, where you can go and name, and I hope I hit the right name. I think this server must exist. Yeah. So repeat the command. So repeat is like object list. You search for a specific object. You can also limit it to specific object types if you want to. And say, okay, I have a host name in my monitoring system, and I want to know what's going on. Where is the configuration located? And this is a pretty cool thing, because if you have more of it, you really see from which config file. You see we're using template, where custom variables come, like this rec or testcom. You can see exactly the file, the line, and the column. So it's really easy if you're using iterative configuration, if you're using apply rules, we come to that later, to come back to the origin. So this is really powerful to find perhaps errors or to get a clue what's going on. We have also something like a live console. We also have that on the website. So if you want to play around with it on the website, there's a live console, because in the next versions, we want to be Icinga 2 more interactive. So it's not, how can I say this? The configuration is a little bit more than a configuration. It's like a language. You can do more and more things with it. Now we have if-else conditions, we have breaks, so we can really write your own code in Icinga configuration, which gives you the ability to really work with functions. We have mathematical functions. We can loop through arrays, perhaps pack all the virtual hosts you have on a machine in an array, and then loop it and create specific checks based on the data. And to show that example is like we do A, C, and this is not a real production example. Just, I hope that nobody of you is an A, C, B setup, but just to give you a clue. So I defined an array, and then I could do A sort, which is say, okay, this is program hour number 1, hello world. But this is really talking to the Icinga core. And you can do a lot of, you have all that functions are documented, so you can really play around. You can define arrays here, loop to them, and perhaps in the future we will create a way that you directly can connect to your core and include configuration, add hosts, delete hosts during the running system, and we make it really more and more able to do crazy stuff with it. You do crazy stuff with it, I know. Yes. So if you would add a new host via API, or yes. Via API, would you still store the configuration in a file, or would you actually use a database or whatever? I have to repeat the question, though. The question was if we add a new host via API, which we are not able to do that at the moment. What do you do with it? Do we store it in a file or something like that? So this is not for sure. We don't know what the right thing is, because we did a couple of workshops the last weeks, and the problem is if you have hi, Kelsey. If you have a couple of files, and for example, you have 100 hosts which come from a configuration file, and then you add one, so what do you want after restart? Do you want to have this again? Or do you say, okay, if I do a restart, then I only want back the files? And yeah, this is hard. So at the moment, we think about if you I don't know, let's say we have 20 hosts coming out from the configuration file, and you add 5 hosts after that. And then perhaps you change attributes, then you delete a host, that we kind of like a replay. After you restart Icinga, that we replay your dynamically commands, or perhaps can something like a flush and say, I want to forget what I did on a dynamic way. But this is, I don't know if there's a right way. It depends on what you need. Yeah, thinking about a commit option and doing something like a rollback. This is also needed because perhaps you cannot delete a template if another host is using this template, or you have host dependencies. So there are a lot of dependencies in the monitoring system, which is really not so easy to work with it. For now, you cannot do it. So for now, if you add objects, you have to restart Icinga. But it works in a really good way that you are not blind for seconds. So one thing is it's really fast, and on the other hand, it validates the configuration, restarts another process, and then switches the workload. So if you restart it 100 times a day, then it's not a big issue like in the old world where we're blind for 10 minutes. And also, the database, if you're using the database, it's really updated. And in Nagios, the database was totally cleaned. So if you restart Nagios, and then the database was truncated, and then all the data come back later. And this does not happen anymore. So we look what changed and update these tables. So you're still able to see everything and have the configuration. Okay. Anything else I want to show you? I don't think so. All the other things, so like adding nodes or doing cluster configuration, I would not show you in the demo because it takes too much time. And I don't think that you want to stay so long in that room with me. But play around with the console on the website, or just install the Vagrant box and play with it on your own. Yeah. Okay. So the question was if we want to keep the classic web interface. No. No, it's not our strategy. So for now we have the classic UI, which has its roots in the old Nagios UI, but we did a lot of work. So Ricardo did a lot of work, like making it easier, having a multi-select, having JSON exports. So it's really enhanced compared to the Nagios classic UI. And we have the Icinga Web. And our target is that we bring all the interfaces together. That at the end, on the long road, we want to have one interface which works for a small environment without like role concepts and LDAP, whatever, multi-user, multi-tenancy environments, and also works for enterprise, and also works for mobile, so using responsive web stuff. But it's not the case that we will discontinue and so we like shut down the classic UI. For us, it's there, it's good enough, so we can keep it there, so you can still use it. But the new interface, for example, will not read the status stat anymore. So we will not able to parse that status data file with the classic UI needs, so we don't have it anymore, because this is really crap. And sometimes it's time to forget old things, I think. Okay. I'm good in time or not? Oh yeah, depends on your opinion. Okay, demo. Coming back to the worst thing in Nagios, no clustering and distribution. In Nagios, you had no integrated failover mechanism. You can do that. You can install a couple of Nagios. You can do some pacemaker or heartbeat setups to cluster it. But there was no included application cluster stack. The configuration is not distributed. So if you want to do that, you can use rsync SCP or lconf slave deploy to deploy the configuration. And also, you don't have any shared monitoring information. So if you have a couple of Nagios servers, you have to take care that you aggregate the data together or put them in a single database, which you can do using different instance IDs, for example, but there is no single brain. And this is what we changed as well. So we have zone support, so you can logically mesh up a couple of Icinga servers to a couple of zones, which enables you to have a multi-tenancy support. You can have a big Icinga setup where you can see everything, and you have a couple of customers locked to specific zones where they only see their environment. You can do logic splits in your configuration, so Icinga takes care that the configuration is copied out to all the systems in that zone. It's easy to scale, because if you have in one zone, you have more than one checker, then automatically the checks gets distributed on the other nodes. So you just add a node, and then they recognize that there is someone else in that area which is able to do their work, and then the checks get redistributed, and then all the agents take care of it. And if one checker in the zone goes down, the others take care of the checks, taking over it and taking care that the monitoring is going on. And how this could look like in this scenario is that we are totally distributed and open. So in this example, we have 3 Icinga servers, and they have different components enabled. So it's important that if you have one zone, that in that zone, the checker needs to be enabled everywhere in one zone, but you can decide that just on a specific server, because the database sits there, you want to write in the database on this node, and you want, for example, write Gelf data to Logstash on this node. But they all share the same information. So if you, I don't know, insert a command or an acknowledgement or get new monitoring information, it's all shared. It's stored if the connection goes down, then it's replayed. And what you can do, and we take the other server away for this example, you can create zones. For example, you can say this is a specific monitoring area, or this is a specific customer, and you can group multiple zones together and inherit, and you can cascade it. So you can do complex things, but you will only do that, hopefully, if you really need it. But you can split up configuration in many ways, which I probably need 20 slides to explain all the scenarios. But the important thing is you can do something like availability. So you can have 2 Icinga nodes in one zone to just take care that your monitoring runs. You can use 2 databases. You can use 2 databases with replication. You can use one database with a HA option where the Icinga automatically can see which node is actively writing to the database. You can do nearly everything. Another bad thing is security is really a mess in the old world. And this is many reasons. One thing is NSCA. If using NSCA, this is really crap. And we used it for years on our own. So not complaining. It works, but it has a lot of issues. It's totally insecure. NSCA had the problem that it totally mixes up the timestamps. So if you transfer your data using NSCA, then inserting into Nagios Nagios replaces all the timestamps from the file with the local time. Means reporting afterwards makes no sense. You can throw this data away because everything is wrong. The timestamps are totally crashed. So if you're using NSA now, think about using something else. NRPE has a lot of security issues, and it's not a might-generated story. So if you use NRPE and security on Google, so please don't do it now because I need the wireless later. You see a lot of issues on the NRPE stuff because the encryption, and there is a way to do it, is really hard. And it leads that all that users and also our setups we had in the past, that you scripted something on your own. So you used SSH to transfer the data. So there are hundreds of tools and add-ons and Python scripts to do that case, but there is no standard way to distribute data in the Nagios world. And sometimes this is really a big issue because normally from your monitoring system you can see everything. And security in monitoring is often really underestimated because it opens your data center to everyone. So if you hijack your monitoring server, normally you have all the keys stored there. Perhaps you don't do that, but it's the case. So we can really go everywhere. So security is really a big thing. And this is the reason why we put that cluster communication on SSL. So everything between nodes works on SSL, on certificates. So you can use an existing certificate authority. So if you're still using Puppet, for example, you can using the same certificates, or you can create your own. We have something like a bin log retention where we store local events. So if the network connection goes down, that we're replaying that events, and then you are able to do an availability report afterwards. You are able to do a bidirectional communication means that you have, for example, a specific network zone and a master. You can connect from the master to the zone or from the zone to the master. It's totally unimportant. You can connect from anywhere to everywhere. You can also define multiple endpoints that you, for example, connect from a distributed server to multiple master hosts if someone goes down. It's up to you, but important is you need a single network port. So everything, status data, all that internal data for writing something to graphite on another node, comments, acknowledgements, everything runs through a single firewall port on SSL. And this is perhaps on the first step, it's a little bit okay, certificates. If you ever played with certificates and you have no clue, it's perhaps a 1 hour thing, what is a certificate authority, how that works. But then it's pretty easy and it's super secure. Configuration. The old configuration is not compatible with Icinga 2. So the Icinga 2 configuration is different. We talked about that often, and really, so can we do that? So can we change the configuration because people yelling the loudest that the old configuration is not good enough will yell if we change it because then they have to learn new things. But we really had to because there are so much limits in the old configuration. And just give you a couple of examples. For example, if you have a specific service and you add new hosts, you had to add these hosts to the service definition again and again. So you add new hosts to the monitoring system, and you do it manually, not using a config tool or your scripts where you export your CMDB data. You have to go the config file and add a specific host. In Icinga 2, you can do that with an apply rule, for example. So you can say, I want to apply a specific service SSH to every host which has an address and is Linux. And then every host you add with it given attributes, then it's automatically added this service. You don't have to edit the service configuration again and again. It's just, you have to do it the right way, set specific attributes. For example, the host variable you can imagine is kind of facts in Puppet, kind of, and say it's a Linux. And then automatically, if you add a new host and say it's a custom fact Linux, then SSH is added to the server. You can also enhance it a little bit like ignore. So it's really powerful. You can say, I want to add this service to every server, but not to the servers which are in test mode, for example. And you can combine these rules with more assigns and more ignores, which could be so long. You can use templates, but this is really powerful to work with it. Another example is host group definition. If you're using host groups, you define a host group and then add the host group members. In Icinga 2, you define a host, and you say, okay, object is host group, and I assign to that host group every host which name MySQL in it. For example, you have a MySQL host group, you can do regular expression, and say every host with the name MySQL I want to add to this host group. So Perhaps you have a CMDB, you configure your templates somewhere in your folder, and then you have a CMDB where you generate all the data out, put it in a file, restart Icinga, and Icinga automatically assigns the specific host to a host group. Another thing you can do is this one. Perhaps take 5 seconds to read it, and perhaps somebody has an idea what it does. Perhaps not everyone at the same time. Somebody has an idea what it does? No? Yes? Yes, that's it. So what we do, we have on all objects in the core, and the same like here in this example in the time period, we can access them, and in this example we can say, if this time period 9 to 5, is it active? Then we have this threshold, and if it's not active, we have another threshold, which makes sense, for example, like disk checks, because you want to notice during the day that you have 80% disk space, but perhaps you don't want to hear it at 5 in the morning, that you have 80%. And you can extend it like more and more, whatever, you can loop around that. You have to find a way how it makes sense for you, but this is really powerful because you can access every object in the monitoring environment. So, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.
Currently, I'm just like rewriting everything. You got your basic text, but you have to rewrite the services.
Yeah, it's okay. I just try to repeat. The idea was like to have a central place where we can share that code snips. What we have the wiki. It's a Confluence wiki where you can add that. I don't know if it's the highly frequent used thing. I think it's not so hot because people do it somewhere else on Gist and GitHub somewhere. We are thinking about providing some space on that Icinga exchange because also the Icinga Web 2 modules will have a future there. Perhaps we can add something there where you can just store these snips or something like that. Yeah, that's a pretty cool idea. Okay, so just to get a conclusion for the config, it's really different. So if you have an existing configuration, and I hope you have one, it's really time thinking about it, doing it different, using these apply, assign things, because you can really do a lot of things very dynamically, using templates, using inherits and all that stuff. And if you play around with it a little bit, I don't know, perhaps I would say 4 or 5 months, then you will love it. No, it takes really 2 hours. So the first 2 hours is like you have to forget the old things, learn the new things, and you will love it in the first day. And if not, please call us. I hand you the number later on. Leaving the core, going to the interfaces. So the principle is what you see is what you get. And talking about Nagios, it's hopefully not. Because, and this is our demo system, so I'm able to complain about, this is really horrible. Means horrible that also, to be fair, the Icinga Classic looks pretty much the same. So we have a little bit nicer theme, but it has the same ugliest, I don't know, not existing user experience design. Other thing is, for example, it's our mobile interface. Yeah, we did a quick prototype a couple of years ago on Icinga Mobile. It still works. I recognize today that we have still an existing demo setup for it. But yeah, we made some experience in the last years and something which are not so cool. One thing is, if you have 20 or 30 servers, then the Classic UI is pretty cool. It's easy to install. But one big issue is that the Classic UI parses the status stat. So the core writes down the data, everything about the core monitoring status to a file. And if you have 20,000 servers, this is really unusable. Executing commands is a little bit hard. So if you try to, or perhaps if you use Nagios or Icinga one, if you try to reschedule a service check, it's like marking the service, going, I want to reschool, want to do it now, and then send command. So if you really do a lot with the interface, it's not nice. And the architecture is really inflexible because the status data is written and this also is true for Icinga. Icinga 1 is written on the host where Icinga runs. Means the status data is written on that server. Means you have to install your classic UI on the monitoring host. So there are ways where you can transfer the data and write the data somewhere else. And I know that you can, for example, write something to the command file using SSH. It's doable. So it's one of the reasons why Nagios is so successful, because it's so incomplete. Because people can play with it, and you can always find a solution to fix the problem, but it's not very sexy. And coming to our interfaces, we have some limitations in our interfaces as well. So the current Icinga Web is really hard to extend. So the basic framework where Icinga Web is built on is that Agavi framework. It's a lot of XML, JavaScript. So if you want to write your own module, you really have to learn a lot. And probably the reason is that the people are not willing to do so, that there are no modules exist outside ours, independent from the stuff we write on our own. And the other thing to answer that question, again, we don't have any unified interface. So at the moment, we have 3 interfaces out there, and we want to have a future where we have one. So what we did another shot, and this looks really good for now. We built Icinga Web 2, which is a very lightweight interface. It's easy to extend, which we can see that there are people writing modules. So a couple of days ago, somebody is there a graphite module for Icinga Web 2? And we said no. And they said, but I found one on GitHub. So somebody else wrote one, and somebody else wrote a module for NETWAYS. So people out there writing modules for Icinga Web, it's not yet stable, but people writing modules for it. We have multiple authentication providers, so you can authenticate your users against an internal DB. You can use an LDAP. You can use Apache methods to authenticate them. We support DB and live status. So for the web interface, you need to run a database, Postgres or MySQL, or a live status. But to clarify that live status is not implemented at the moment. So in the final version, which is targeted for May, live status will be in there. For now, the connections are there. You can configure it, and perhaps if you have luck, you can get some information. But live status is not yet ready. But we are not stable. So we are on the development at the end of the road. But if we finish that, then we'll support the database and live status as well. And it's responsive. And the architecture looks like the case that we have an Icinga Web 2 framework, which takes care of the authentication stuff. It takes care about users and backends. And all the other things, including the monitoring module itself, is a module. So Icinga Web, the basic foundation, could be the foundation for something totally else. But we ship monitoring and doc with it. So this is the modules coming with the installation. And all the other things, for example, the business process add-on I show you later, the graphite or PNP is a module. So the basic Icinga Web is just a framework, and everything else is a module. And I will show you how this looks like. Okay, so this is the dashboard of Icinga Web 2, the current version. So if you're familiar with the principal concept of monitoring, it's like we have normally a lot of red and green and orange colors. Where you can see this. Can you read it? Is it readable? I can try to. Oh no, it's not better. Then it reduces another column. Okay, we have to go this way. Sorry. What you can see on the dashboard is you have the service problems here on the left side, and a basic concept of Icinga Web 2 that every time you click on a specific service, host group, whatever, then you get the details on the right side. So recently recovered service is a specific view as well. So if you come back from lunch break, you see what happened and what's up again. And if you go on a specific service, then you see the detail on the right. And it works the same way. So for example, I click the service or ping on C Windows. I see the service data, see a PNP graph over here. And if I want to do a recheck, and if you can remember how that works in Nagios, it's like, that's it. That's everything you have to do. This is a recheck command, which is probably you save the half of your day if you work with the old thing. It's really easy to do the basic things, or say adding a comment or adding an acknowledgement. It's pretty easy. Everything works in that box. So adding a comment as well is like the boxes here, adding a comment, and that's it. I think some... Okay. If you have disk checks, you perhaps can recognize these small pie chart. So if you have a couple of disk or performance data, which makes sense, you have something like a pie chart where you can see that your disk is nearly full. Also, if you come to a specific host, you can see what's up with the other services on that node. So in this host, we have one configured service which is up and all the others is down, and it's directly clickable, so you can go to every host and, for example, leave the detail for that, and then you go to other service and go here and have the details over there. And compared to all the other things, you can reach every column, every situation you have using the browser history. So it really works to get the same state. We can copy the link, so everything you see, all the filtered stuff is completing in the UL, so you can jabber to somewhere else, and you get the same result. So you can walk down the street. If you, in Icinga Web, if you use that, getting the same state after reload, it's not so, it's cool, but it's not super cool. For every object, you get a full history. So if you go to object, you can have the complete history, which is where you get the power of the database. So also if you have 100,000 host objects, it's really easy to get everything which happened on that specific node. We can do something like a search, which is important if you have a lot of objects. If you type here win, for example, then you see the hosts, the services. You can see the host groups containing win as a word. You can also see the details for the host group here, so how many services in total, in which state they are. And for example, it gets to pending over here, and you get the details which service is going to happen. So we really took care about that everything you need normally is reachable very easy. You can do something like a multi-select, pressing Shift, or pressing not Shift. No, it worked. And then you see the details for that, and you can do a check now for all the host objects, for example. And that's it. So it's pretty easy to work with a couple of hosts and services. I go back to the dashboard.
Can you overlay the service charts?
Sorry?
Did you overlay the service charts? So you have like,
Overlay the service chart.
yeah, you have just click on CPU or whatever, you get this chart.
Yeah.
To
To get the detail for the chart.
yeah, of two hosts.
No, not in this view, but you can create a dashboard for that. But you can get the detail for the PNP graph. It's not though beautiful because we have the PNP basic framework out there. We will cut this out in the next version, that you have this RD graph. So we can reach the detail, but it's not possible to add a couple of hosts in a dashboard graph. No, not for now. How much time do I have? Okay. Okay, so we have the typical views. Perhaps if you missed these, normally which takes 30% of the screen is this bar over there, where then they have 1,000 hosts, okay. So we throw that out because it doesn't make sense. Perhaps you will miss it and say, okay, you like to show somebody, I have everything on green. But we try to prepare everything that you can focus on the things which are not in a good state. So we throw out this performance bar. Perhaps somebody writes a module to bring it back again. If somebody loves it, we will not do it. So we really try to focus on the things which are not in a good shape. Another thing we have, which you can see, we have a powerful filter engine. So all the views you have are filtered. So for example, I used the multi-select feature to select a couple of services over there, and then I just see the details, what it generates. And this is also in the UL, so it's a combination of OR and AND, adding these specific hosts, and I can do more. So I can filter on nearly everything, on every attribute a host has. You can create your own dashboards. And if you say, this is pretty cool, I want to store exactly this one to a dashboard. Voila. No, why not? You can add it to the dashboard and say, this is exactly the data I want to have. I want to assure current incidents. and then you can see it here. No, you cannot see it. Where is it? Do you have the wrong dashboard? Hold on. Here is it. OSDC. But I kicked out the filter, which was not a clue ID. And you can also throw it out. So we have something we deliver. One thing is the business process add-on, which I can show you now. Are you familiar with the basic concept of the business process idea? Is that normally the system relates on host and service checks, and Bernd sitting here, he's the original creator of the business process add-on for Nagios. The idea is getting a service result for more than a specific host or service, because a service in business is more than a single host or service. It's your web application, it's your email server, it's a thing your customers pay for. Perhaps your internal or external customers, but a service is more than a single state. And you can do that with the business rules. For example, here you see a DNS service, but the DNS service consists of a lot of components. So you need a couple of DNS servers, and what we have a combination of OR and AND rules as well. So we say DNS service is green if one of these DNS servers is okay. You can do also something like a minimum, have to say minimum 2 servers needs to be okay in a load balanced cluster or something like that. Just to show another example, the web service. Where you see we need a MySQL server and we need a web server for it. And you can see in this example, oh, I'm not able to press that button. That for example, sorry? I try to. Thank you. You see that one of the MySQL servers is down, but it's an OR rule that one of these servers needs to be up, so the service is okay. Does it in general make sense what it does? What you can do, you can simulate some stuff. So you can say, I would assume that C server is down, for example. I say, okay, this is critical. Then you can see if this one is critical, what happens to your service. And this is it's not powering down the real server, it's just a simulation. In this process, it's easy, so you are able to see what's going on, but if you have a lot of services and you have a lot of AND on ORs, it could be hard sometimes to say what really happens if this server goes down. And the simulation is pretty cool for it. So you can use the web interface to create new processes. It's file-based. You can generate them using Puppet, Ansible, whatever, but you can also use the web interface for it. Another thing is that we have different views. For example, we have the basic grids, and we also have the tiles. The tiles is pretty cool for monitoring. It's just like green-red. And if you have problems with it, you can just make a green screenshot and leave it there. Looks pretty nicer. But sometimes this is enough for monitoring to see if something is going on and you don't want to go into the detail, or perhaps you don't want to see a rate failure on your dashboard in the company. And also in the dashboard, we can use the tiles in a reduced size over here, and we can go to that, click here, and then we see the process on the right side. So independent from every module we use, every detail comes on the right side. Something I missed? Another cool feature, which doesn't look so good here, but the main reason is because I created this virtual machine today. If you're using GitHub, you know something like an activity grid. If you come on the landing page on GitHub and see what's going on a specific date. And this is what we do with the event grid. So we will do some graphic work on that because we know that this is not the super sexy view at the moment. But just to understand the concept is that every quarter represents a day. And if event happens on the day, we mark it red, and then more events on the day happen, then the redder it gets. Means if you have a look on a year, you can really say, I have a lot of alerts every time on the first Monday of a month. For example, because the accounting generates the loan or whatever. So it's really interesting because on a short term, normally you know what's going on. You know that you have your same friends in your company which crashing the system every Thursday, whatever, because they play patches. But for a bigger time range, it's really hard to get these constraints between specific actions and results. And this is cool. And for now, you see the generated events for today. Then you can click on that. You see that we have 137 service criticals on that day. You see it on the right side, the detail. And if the system runs a little bit longer, it will bring something on the right side as well. Yeah. The question was if this view can be filtered for specific services. No. We can specific on types, services, and host for now, but we cannot filter on specific service groups. Perhaps we can add that if this is interesting. So when we played around, we recognize these kind of views make sense with a lot of data. So if you really look into the database after months and really see the whole system, what's going on. But that would be an interesting idea. Sorry? Sorry, I didn't get it. Yeah. No. So the question is, bye-bye. Please use it. You are running away or you have to leave? We have to leave. Okay, that's okay. Thank you. No, for now you cannot, because perhaps you don't have 20,000 of it. In that basic tile, you see everything, so you can use them. There's a check delivered with it where you can check your service state. Because what's happened here, it's just the visualization of the process, but there's a check plugin where you really can check your process, and this is in the system a real service like all the others, and then you can filter that one. Another new view is that service grid, which shows you listed problems of the same type or area for all hosts and services which have not a good state. So you see the host on the left side, and here you see the services, and then you can see, for example, Windows does not work on any server, which is the standard situation, you know, from your office. So it's real data. So you have this here. It also totally makes sense if you have an outage in a storage, or you're monitoring your storage from specific virtual machines or from hypervisors. Have a look on your central Ceph or whatever. Then you go on that matrix, and it's really just a 2-second view to see, okay, this is wrong. I have a problem with the network. I have a problem with the storage. So it gives you, if you not have a specific server in error state, if you just want to get an overview what's wrong, this is a pretty cool view. You can filter that on specific problems. You can see the filter area over here. Like I said, we are still in the process of finishing it. But this is a pretty cool view. And it also works with a lot of data. So this demo uses a MySQL database, which is not so big because it's just a demo setup. But if you have 1 million of services in it, the interface works the same performance, because all the needed stuff is indexed, and therefore the database is invented for doing such stuff. So database in a big environment really makes sense. Okay. Anyone has a specific questions for the web interface for now? Yes? Is it possible to handle maintenance and servers, so to activate monitoring? Yes. The question is if it's possible to disable monitoring. You can do that. It's a downtime. In Icinga, there's a fixed downtime where you can say on Saturday morning from 2 to 4, and there's something like a flexible downtime where you can say it starts somewhere, and when it starts, so when the server goes down, then the time counts. You can just select a service, or more service, and then say here, schedule downtime. And then you can say it's a fixed or a flexible downtime. You can set the date. You can write a comment, so I don't know, flexible downtime because I do updating the system, and that's it. And then the monitoring, so you don't get any notifications or stuff like that. More questions on the web interface? Okay.
Could you also set up downtimes with multiple selections?
Yes. So we can select multiple services and then set a downtime. That's possible. And, oh, I'm only over time, I think. So you can play with the web interface. It works. So we know a lot of people using it in production because all the monitoring stuff is pretty good. There are some designs in the backend, some dialogues which are in the phase we want to finish them. So the release we're targeting, I would say, we're targeting early May, I would say end of May, will be the logical result of it. But it's really close, so in the next 2 months, we will finish it. And I'm nearly finished with my talk as well, so don't be afraid. Just to give you an idea, the problem is we have no clue who is using Icinga, because you don't have to register, you don't have to sign up. We know that a lot of people using the packages. So it was really important, if you're using it, please let us know. We have on the website a form where you can type your name and what you do with it, so if you're allowed to. For us, it would be really interesting to know who is using Icinga. Perhaps if you had a shiny logo, we would put this on the website as well. So these are some companies we know that they're using it, and we're allowed to use the logo. Probably I'm not allowed to use the Adobe logo, but I like it, and so I put it on the slide. They use it. And they used Icinga too. We had that Icinga camp in San Francisco last year at GitHub, thanks to James. He made it possible. And some guy from Adobe came, and Icinga too was, it was very new, and we knew there's some work to do in the background. Said, we're using it in production, it works pretty cool. And another girl from HP said, we are using it for monitoring our internal private cloud. And then we said, you're from HP, you have your own monitoring tool. They said, but it doesn't work. So it's a real story. So we have Icinga too. That's it. So if you have it, please let us know. And then we have a couple of events going on. We have these Icinga camps. So if you're familiar with the concept of a puppet camp, it's probably the same, but you can get it. It's about Icinga. The next thing will be in Kuala Lumpur. So if you have time for holiday, in the middle of June. And we also have one in Portland. So if you're going to PuppetConf in Portland, it will be the Saturday after PuppetConf at the Puppet Labs headquarters. They will the Puppet Camp. And perhaps we have one in New York as well in summer. But the problem is we don't have a location in New York. And doing it, an open session on Times Square is a little bit hard. So we're working on a location there, and we have some ideas which looks really promising. But we would like to do so. And if you come over to these kind of events, it really makes sense to fly in. A conclusion, just an important thing what describes what we want to do. We want to be compatible with all these hot tools, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel again and again. So we want to focus on monitoring and APIs, which is the major target for the next version. The 2.4 is our main reason that we want to APify everything, that you can get all the data, you can create hosts, delete hosts, do everything using a concrete API. This is one of the major targets, and we want to be able to connect to all this stuff. So using Logstash, using InfluxDB or Graphite, but we don't want to invent our own logging tool, because there are great tools out there, and really focusing on our stuff and being open to all the cool tools out there that makes your own tool chain possible in the data center. So what you definitely should do if you leave that room, download Icinga 2, rethink your configuration. It really makes sense to do so. Install the new web interface, play around with it, and give us feedback. We are around here if you want to catch with us here or on any channel, on every Facebook, and every social net on world, you can reach us. Thank you very much. Have safe travels home. Are there questions if somebody wants to do so? Or I don't know if you have time, but if there are questions? Okay, there are still lunch boxes out there. Perhaps this is more important for now. More food. Okay, safe travel home. Thanks for coming over.